Activate. There we go. This could be a big auspicious occasion. I think with this the second time we've done one of these in less than a week.
I know. It's but it's the calm before the storm.
That's what they say. I
Who's
don't
the
know what kind of storm we're going to get.
well,
Usually, it doesn't bode well because it usually starts with an S and ends in a T. But
and it's not a dollar sign in between. Oh man. Well, so it's been yeah, it's been actually uneventful apart from the crazy stuff that's happening all the time, right?
yeah, I think crazy is the new normal.
Crazy is the new normal. I think you got that right. I'm just making sure all my sound settings are good.
Yeah, we want to make sure it's recording this time.
Yeah, yeah, we don't want to look like a couple of weeks ago. That was something. But
Yeah.
anyway, so how are things on the West Coast?
Well, we had a little bit of rain last night, which we sorely needed, and now we're signing in between sunshine and cloud today. So it's, as they say, unfolding as it's supposed to.
Uh,
Here we are. I think today is either today or tomorrow, depending on who you believe, is the fall equinox. So
that's right. That's right. We're heading into the first day of fall, if we're not already into it.
if we're not already into it, I don't know.
Well,
I
it feels fall-like here, I have to tell you. I mean, it's still warm. We had, I think, 24 degrees, 25 with sunny. It's now quite overcast and looks like we're going to get some rain. But and you can feel it in the air. And every so often you'll see a tree that's suddenly decided to go from green to red or yellow.
Oh, we've got a lot of those out here too. It's quite surprising. It just seems like overnight they've changed.
Yeah.
Uh,
My tomato plants are coming down to the last bunch of tomatoes that are starting to turn. And you know,
your harvest is almost done.
well, I probably have another 15 or 20 tomatoes left to pull off the little plants that I put out. And we'll be into fall big time. And the predictions are, depending on who you want to listen to, either going to be short and sharp or long and miserable.
Which, if we normally take our jaded approaches, it'll be somewhere in between.
Well, in this part of the world, predictions for weather are hit and miss. We have the lakes put in its own schedule. So it'll say we'll have rain at 2 o'clock and you'll have no rain for 3 weeks. It's just we have very bizarre predictability here for weather. So
No,
wait,
that's true.
wait a half an hour and it'll change.
I have had an uncle, and when we moved out here, we were always talking about, does it always rain or does it always do? And his whole comment to that was, is, well, the thing about the weather, there's only two kinds of people that do that. Those that think they know what the weather's going to be like, and fools, because there's no way you can predict it. Although, at times they do hit it bang on out here. I guess they must have killed the proper chicken and goats or something to get that forecast, but who knows?
Well, it is what it is.
Mhm. It,
So the week has been eventful to some extent and uneventful in other ways.
well, as we sit here on this Sunday afternoon, uh, we're not engulfed in World War III yet.
Yet.
Um, one tends to think how much further we can go along that line before it actually does kick off. But then, we've got a lot of comic relief here in what we call government. So,
Well,
we talk about all the ins and outs of what's going on. Like, we're a real big player in the world, or at least we think we're a real big player in the world. And in reality, I think people are in the back corner snickering at us, but we're the epitome of the 98-pound weakling trying to look like a muscle man walking down some beach.
Well, yeah, you've got Orange Man lying on the beach, and then you have the carnage going, kicking sand in his face. Not a good idea. I mean, that we can use whatever analogies or metaphors we want here. But our man has decided he will be going to the United Nations, and where they'll be talking about very weighty things like recognizing Palestine and all that. But he won't be addressing the General Assembly. Uh, and that's interesting. Uh, uh, do you know if you get invited to address the General Assembly, or do you, by virtue of being a member of the General Assembly, get to address the General Assembly? Like, who decides who speaks at the General Assembly?
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. There has to be some kind of a schedule. Maybe it's our turn in the slot to have a little bit of a chin wag with the world. I don't know. I
Okay,
would I would doubt it, but
but we could be blowing smoke here, but the permanent members of the General Assembly, those people get to speak, I think, anyway. So the US, Russia, China, Great Britain,
Britain,
France,
France,
those are the five that can do. I mean, they're always on the roster. The meeting. So those folks, I believe, can speak anytime they want to, or their representatives. So the foreign minister of those five countries, minus the or in place of the head of state, can address the General Assembly, and then the Secretary General obviously addresses the General Assembly when he opens this once a year in September, right? So the news that's in front of my screen here is that Carney's to attend the UN events, but won't address the General Assembly, and there's all sorts of people with their eyebrows up going, well, why wouldn't he do that? Because he's so important. And which raises the question that we don't have the answer to for, we'll have it for next week. But
well, with deference to some of our American cousins who like to drop the R, that kind of explains the difference between important, and I'll let the people figure that other one out.
well, in the grand scheme of things, importance is dictated by the size of your wallet in politics.
And we're certainly trying our best to live up to that. Especially what is it now, up to 22 or 24 billion dollars to the Ukraine, but we still have people who don't have a house to live in here in Canada. They don't have food on the table.
Yeah.
We're having problems in our healthcare system. 22, 24 billion dollars would go a long way to fixing some of those situations up. But unfortunately, the Canadian John Q. public is
Well,
too
you're
busy thinking
you're,
about
you're
things.
probably talking about the charity begins at home routine that apparently is not very Canadian. We worry about people in Vietnam having gender specific rice growing,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a parade in Suriname that was paid for. Suriname, most people would have to find out on the map where Suriname is. It's on the north coast of South America, next to Guyana, and it used to be the Dutch Guyana, but it's called Suriname. And we
Yeah.
apparently have money. We gave $8 million so that they could have a parade there uh, for the Rainbow Coalition that's there. I mean, it's just we have money for that, but clearly um, our approach there is different. But look, overview of the 2-day trip of our illustrious leadership down to see Claudia
President
Sheinbaum,
Clinton. Yeah.
Mexico. Yeah, it was quite something. Came back with a whole lot of nothing.
Paper
Interesting.
might have been very expensive paper. It might have been that stuff that's archival quality, and that's expensive.
Well, it is, and it was seen from different lenses. If anybody bothered to look at what Mexico thought of this trip, it was hardly a event to be too excited about. But if you watched our media, it was fabulous. It was next
Mhm.
to the state visit of Trump and King Charles. It's about the same level.
Yeah.
Uh, Not quite.
Well, again, the difference between world press, where President Sheinbaum's eyes rolled backwards and you could hear the loud clunk as she was perhaps less than stellarly impressed, whereas the Canadian politicians would and press would say she was just so awe-enamored she almost passed out.
Yeah, well, it was shockingly boring that trip, to be honest. And the props were pointed out.
Well,
It was just ridiculous, you know. And
there's lots of that. And
you know,
wasn't
it's
paying off media.
well, why did he go down there? I think it's just another shot at essentially trying to piss off the Americans because there's
Oh
no
yeah, yeah. We've got that, and when you start having fairly high-ranking U.S. diplomats who are saying you're really yanking our chain here on this anti-Americanism. You have to start worrying here, folks. I don't care if you don't want to go back down to Arizona or Florida or Palm Springs or Palm Desert or wherever you happen to go to get out of the cold, miserable winter here. Uh, it's just called cutting your nose off to spite your face. We unfortunately don't have any place that we can go to that's warm. So if you're quite happy sitting in your cabin up here in the depths of winter, throwing logs on, or pardon me, you can't throw logs on, you can throw on electric flames. Yeah, that might be okay. Feel free to do it.
well, the problem with this attitude is that it harbors resentment after a while. So far, this I think has had little traction among ordinary neighbors of ours to the south. You know,
What? Yeah,
because we're really not that important in the grand scheme of things
the
for,
overall, yeah, that's true.
and that may be a good thing. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think it
I
is.
always get nervous when Americans get interested in some other country. Trouble follows afterwards because
Well, I think that,
they've had a
but
history of bringing democracy to a lot of countries.
well, the way we're going, we could probably need some because it
Well,
sure sounds
yeah,
like we're living in a
but maybe,
dictatorship here. But
yeah.
and it's interesting too. You sit back and you think, according to one of the MPs from His Majesty's loyal opposition, who said last year we had a vote in the House of Commons about recognizing Palestine, and it failed miserably.
That's right.
And you know, Parliament just opened last week, and it wasn't even discussed, and yet today they signed this declaration. We've had the same kind of thing where our illustrious leader heads off somewhere around the world and starts saying, well, we're going to put boots on the ground in the Ukraine. When was that discussed in Parliament? Oh, wait, we hadn't sat in Parliament yet. We're going to give you another $4 billion. Well, when was that discussed? Well, it wasn't because we didn't have Parliament opened. Where does that fall in the budget? Oh, yeah, well, we don't have a budget. There's just, I really, I guess if Canadians don't start to sit up and wake up and take notice of these things, then I guess we get what we deserve. And I would hope that our American cousins don't paint us all with the same brush that we're all anti-American and whatever. But it is getting in my small world here. It's worrisome for me.
Well, look, the business of recognizing the Palestinian state as long as they have a number of things they have to meet. There's a whole list of little boxes they have to check off. If anybody cares to read the press release that came out today by the Prime Minister Canada, which, by the way, it's cookie cutter, but the same press release came out by Anthony Albanese in Australia and Keir Starmer in the UK. I mean, these three are real strange bedfellows on so many things, and they're all really, you know, not that impressive when it comes to the sort of international community. But okay, that's just my opinion, and I'll leave it at that. But they basically rewarded the Hamas people for their violence, and the head of Hamas actually said the recognition of the Palestinian state is the fruit of October 7th. Okay, they're not going to change things. So you've got these three amigos, and I should throw in the French guy, Macron, because he's in that crowd as well. And so you have a hard time, I think, explaining that you're really annoyed and angry with Hamas for what they did on October 7th, but at the same time, you're going to acquiesce to their demand to be a state as long as they leave the state and exile themselves in some other democrat. Like, this is so phony.
Well,
Uh,
it is. It goes back down to, again, like I hate to harp on this, but dear departed Rex Murphy.
Sucking and blowing
And
it.
we have the Canadian government trying to prove that you can suck and blow at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So, how much is this going to cost us?
Well, again, it doesn't really matter because we don't have it. Well, we'll have a budget in November,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I have a little list here that's just, because I was prepared for today's meeting. Okay.
I
Just,
wasn't. I
okay.
just did it off the spur of the moment.
Well, okay. So you're talking about how much it's going to cost. In 2017, way back in 2017, our federal deficit was, ready? $1 billion. 2018, it jumped to $19 billion. In 2020, it was $39 billion. You see the trend here, eh? Okay. 2021, it goes 10 times that level. It goes to $328 billion. These numbers are hard to fathom, okay, because it starts to get very funny after all. In 2022, it drops down to $90 billion. In 2023, it's 35 billion. Okay, so there's suddenly you see the hangover from COVID, right? Going away. But 2024, we more than double it. We take it back up to 62. And in comes the carpetbagger's best friend, and it's projected to be over $100 billion. So sometime in November, we shall find out how much more than $100 billion we're going to have a deficit for. Why are these all borrowed?
Well,
It has to be paid back to somebody. Because,
unless we get the parliamentary budget officer back online again, we really won't know for sure. We
well,
can believe the government, or we can believe the opposition, or we can believe nobody. But maybe the parliamentary budget officer is the one that looks at the real numbers and is the guy that's speaking the truth.
yeah, but if Buddy gets fired, he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. And he's been fired. So
I rest my case. When it comes to the whole business of the Palestinian recognition, by the way, after all those boxes they need to check off, I return to this business of the boxes. The question was asked of the prime minister, like, so what led you to do all this, and have you spoken to the participants that you're going to uh, recognize? Well, apparently not, because they're a terrorist organization, so he didn't talk to them. He also has never ever spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu since taking office in March. And it says right on the press release from him, he's made a number of calls to Jerusalem, but apparently they're not picking up the phone. So Netanyahu has not deemed it important enough to speak to Mark Carney about this. And that's all you need to know about the bilateral relationship between Canada and Israel going forward.
Mhm. Yeah.
Never mind that I'm quite sure at some point Orange Man is going to pick up the phone and give him a call, a quick call, and say, "Stop messing about in my backyard, i.e., Mexico. And by the way, stop messing about in the Middle East with your games." I already talked to Starmer when I was over there with King Charles, and I kind of made it clear that, you're going to have to stay in your own lane, or you don't get the $350 billion that you needed before the UK has to go to the IMF, because apparently they're in such wonderful shape themselves economically that they're verging on having to get a loan from the International Monetary Fund. And we all know who runs the IMF. Because where is the IMF headquarters? Washington, D.C.
Well,
Duh.
we also know too, to extrapolate that a bit farther, is Britain's in, I won't say dire straits, but close to dire straits.
Close to. Yep.
And who was the guy that was leading the monetary policy at that time?
Ka-ching, ka-ching, Carney.
And guess who's leading the the charge here?
Ka-ching, ka-ching. Well, to be fair though, let's be fair. Okay.
That's
He was only there for 5 years before, he took over the reins. He was only an advisor for 5 years to the idiot king that ran the place before.
Mhm. But because the idiot king only had one brain cell half the time functioning, it was basically what,
That's
well, whatever you say.
you're being really mean, but you're not mean enough. I'll tell you why, because that guy right now is in South Korea getting $100,000 to babble in front of some university crowd.
Well, that's his niche. And but
Oh, wish it was our niche. They
well,
could pay us $100,000 to,
yeah, we
start.
could we could grow our hair out. Well, I don't know if I could grow my hair out anymore. It would start. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Here.
sure.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know where it's going to end. It's
I'll bring you to some more levity about, how things are important when it's closer to home. Our beer stores are closing. Yeah, I don't know. How do you buy beer in BC? Do you have a special beer store you go to?
no, we just have a general liquor store where you can get beer, spirits, and
But can you buy
other
it
things.
at the grocery store? Can you buy
Um, non-alcoholic.
That's not beer.
Well, it's listed as beer.
Okay. But can you buy wine at a grocery
Yeah,
store?
wine in certain stores, yeah, but
Oh,
only BC wine.
well, yeah. I wish we could buy BC wine. Very hard to get here. That's another country. Um, well, the beer stores in Ontario are closing uh, because last year the provincial government decided it was okay to sell wine and beer, not spirits, wine and beer. You can't buy liquor or, whiskey or whatever, but you can buy wine and beer at any store that wants to sell it. So it can be you know a grocery store, it can be a convenience store. I don't know if they have them at gas stations yet, but why not? Yes.
Well, eventually it'll be okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but the problem with the sale of these products much more conveniently now is that the beer stores, which had a monopoly on selling beer, have lost business.
Mhm.
And by the way, the monopoly of the beer stores was designed to protect Canadian breweries, but there are no Canadian breweries anymore. They've all been sold to European or South African interests. So we don't, none of the beer people in Canada are actually Canadian. They're part of global groups. But the thing about the beer stores here was you could take back the empties, not only from the beer store or for beer cans and bottles, but you could also take back all the bottles that you bought at the liquor store for wine and
Mhm.
whiskey and what have you. Well, when these beer stores close, they haven't figured out how to take back the empties. Now,
Well, we're
allegedly,
Yeah, we've
Allegedly,
got separate stores.
you have separate stores. Where do you take back
Yeah.
your empties?
When you take back what?
Where do you take back your empties?
Yeah, it's
Where,
called a
where it's called a what?
recycling center. It takes beer bottles, liquor bottles, wine bottles, pop cans, milk jugs, everything. We're back and you get money with it.
Well, and where? How many? Is it easy to get to? How many you got?
Oh, we've got one within a kilometer of our house here.
And that's all they do is take back empties.
That and cardboard and styrofoam and yeah, paint cans that aren't quite empty. And yeah, it's a completely recycle center.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
one
here,
of the few things that we're doing right, I guess.
yeah, no, I think that's great. We don't have that. We have edict from the province that if you sell wine and beer in a grocery store, by January 1st, you have to be able to take them back. Now, and I don't see a whole lot of movement in these stores to do this. In fact, our local convenience store said we're not going to sell wine and beer because I have nowhere to put this machinery to, take in the bottles and the cans that would come.
Mhm.
Because you need, a recycling center of some kind, automated or otherwise, and you got to store all this stuff, and you have to train people. And I guess because here, what happens, especially since this is after busy weekend in a beach town, there are literally thousands of beer cans that get picked up on the
Yeah.
beach by the beachcombers. Okay. And they take bags of empties, and I think each can is worth a nickel. They just weigh it and they give you cash for it at the beer store. But this beer store will close here in October. And so no one knows we're going to take back the beer can. So it's interesting to hear, or any bottles for that matter. It's interesting to hear how you do it out there.
Yeah. And it is. It's like we've got a fast thing where you just throw the things in your own little plastic bag and you take it in there with a sticker and you open up an account and sometime throughout the day they open that bag up and they count what's there and they credit the amount right to your bank account or whatever it is you've got opened up with them and they're saying nickel for this, a dime for that. It I think some of the stuff is 20 cents, so yeah,
That's
it's quite
brilliant.
a lucrative business.
And is it run by the province or is it a private enterprise?
It's called Recycle BC. And I think they have to have some kind of provincial tie-in, but it's separate. They're all their own independent little things.
Cool.
So yeah.
That's oh, well, maybe old Dougie should go out and meet your pal
Well,
up.
I got a better deal for you. Maybe we'll send our pal down to your guy and
Now
then
we
we
no, we're full up. Now we
we'll
got
just give them a one-way ticket.
yeah. No, I was thinking, the other way. Yeah. We're going to export our pal to meet your pal and keep him for 10 years or something. But no, that's great because it's there's really no movement, at least
Yeah.
this part of the province. I haven't seen any construction from the grocery stores to do this. I know that in Michigan, if you buy anything at the grocery store that sells wine or liquor, they sell everything there. There's no such thing as a liquor store. It's just sold normally in the grocery stores, wine, liquor, beer.
Yeah.
But at the back of the stores, these big, Kroger's or Menards or whatever, there's a machine. You just pile all the stuff in there. It knows what it is you've thrown in. It has obviously some kind of reading device that reads the cans or the bottles, and it gives you a chip for credit if you want to use the credit when you're grocery shopping. Uh,
Mm.
but you can. It's a big machine. I mean, it's not just a little hole in the wall. It's
Yeah.
quite elaborate. And some of these superstores where lots of people go in there to buy the stuff and take it back. So,
Mhm.
but we don't have anything like that because they made this decision just out of whole cloth, and everybody thought it was great. Okay, now I can buy, a six pack anywhere I go. I have to go just to the beer store. Uh,
Yeah.
the downside, of course, is it's put the beer store people out of business. Like here in town, that closes, I think, on the 6th of October, which is not that far down
Oh,
the road. It's 21st of September. These people are unemployed.
Uh, well, maybe that's the start of John Q. Public waking up. So more people starting to be unemployed, finding out it's very difficult to put food on the table.
Well,
People going in and looking and saying, I can't afford to pay, $8 for a tomato. It's
you're bringing up a good point. We spoke about it in pre-production. Inflation at grocery level is not fun because
no,
you were saying, what do you look at and now start putting stuff back on the shelf? We didn't used to do that. Now
no,
it's now starting to happen with me, and sometimes it's not even the price. It's just I get angry at what I see as gouging. Because I think I was telling you, there's a bottle of grape jelly. They wanted $8 for it at the. I won't name the chain. Doesn't matter. I just put it back on the shelf. I'm not paying $8 for a bottle of grape jelly. I've lost my mind.
yeah.
It's real value even in 2025 currency is probably $3, but $8. Uh,
Well, some of that is the reverse carbon tax that was supposed to have gone the way of the dodo bird, which has reappeared now as the phoenix, I think, because it arises from the ash, doesn't it?
yeah, yes, from the dead, but it wasn't killed off.
No, it wasn't.
No, but I mean,
Much, much
everything.
to the chagrin of a lot of people, they thought it was done.
Yeah, no.
We
We're,
find out that the prime minister can't usurp the governor general's authority by signing a piece of paper to revoke anything. But
yeah.
anyway,
Well, look, I don't think any of the people who were listening to giving us the malarkey about inflation and the cost of living actually go in a grocery store or actually pump gas at the gas station. The day-to-day life that regular folks lead I has bears no relationship with the elites that are going out and making all these ridiculous pronouncements, standing in front of Potemkin houses that are being built. Yeah, this was the other big joke this week. They were standing in front of a so-called construction site, and it wasn't a construction site at all. It was just a bunch of facades put up for the press conference. There's no house there because the following day it was all taken down and gone.
yeah, well,
This is something they used to do in the Soviet Union, for heaven's sakes. You know, conning people into believing stuff was happening.
mhm. We're building 39,000 tractors because people need tractors.
Yeah, but we are only giving away two. But it's like everything else. I told you, my grandson picked up his truck, you know, a GM truck, not to advertise GM, but it's a Chevy truck, and the list price is $94,000. You could buy a house when we were his age for
And
94,000,
quite a nice house, yeah.
and a nice house, right? But I was curious to see where it was made because it's Silverado, and I heard a couple of weeks ago that that line in Oshawa, Ontario, is closing down that shift, so they're not making Silverados anymore. I looked at the post on the vehicle, brand new 2026, and it's made in Mexico. Just like my Chevy Equinox, which is now 2 months old. I looked at the post when it came home with it, and it's made in Mexico.
Mhm.
Just as a reminder to all the elbows up crowd to think that everything's being stolen out from under us by our pals to the south. They're from the south, but it's one more gut country over.
Well, it's just the way politicians work. It's all semantics. All the people to the south of us are taking work. Now, it's up to you to decide what the south is. But
How far south do you want to go? Right.
oh, remember that old saying, things have gone south.
That's we certainly have. All right.
Anyway, we've kind of beaten that dead horse. Didn't really get around to too much in the way of immigration.
No, it's just been another. Oh, don't talk. I saw your immigration thing. Hey, listen, that got me a little cuckoo here when I'm looking at the chart that is right off the charts about
Yeah.
1 million temporary workers. Like, have we lost our
Uh-oh.
minds?
Yeah. Well, I know we're not supposed to advertise, but that is a good site to go to. Immigrationstatistics.ca.
Yeah,
You want
I
to get
think
an
yeah,
open eye, that here in Canada just shows you the tidal wave that's coming.
it's here. What do you mean? It's already washed over. And
Well,
you probably saw it because you're a wonk like me watching anything that's got to do with immigration. Kash Patel tells everybody in the U.S. Congress that he's not worried about the southern border, he's worried about the northern border because it's full of people that Canadians don't even know who they are. And they're concerned about all kinds of bad guys uh, here. And apparently our people are not concerned about bad guys here. Now,
because we know it's going south.
well, but they're not, they're not going to get very far. They're talking about some serious reinforcements, legally and otherwise, to the movement south, not just for Canadians, but for everybody. I mean, the
Mhm.
H-1 visa, where, you could just get a visa to go work. They've now introduced $100,000 cash deposit, so to speak, to get an H-1 visa. That puts an end to the Indian software people showing up. It wasn't aimed at Canada. It's a global thing they've done because,
Mhm.
the greed of American corporations had to be reined in a little bit. You've got all kinds of people coming in from around the world on these ridiculous visas. And like the Hyundai plant, when they found 400 some people who shouldn't even be there putting cars together, right? So they're cracking down. And of course, our famous crowd here, oh my God, what are they doing to Canada? It's got nothing to do with Canada, buddy. You know,
Mhm.
uh,
Well, we're so busy worried about the poor kid in Vietnam that's living on $10 a day, making polo shirts that he should be getting at least $10 an hour because we're so far out of touch with things.
well, we worry about the guy making the shirts in Taiwan, in Bangladesh, making the socks in Vietnam. I mean, this is where we're just not in tune with what's going on. And this business of the work visa, we're giving out 3 million something work visas, and the Americans are doing exactly the opposite. And by the way,
Well,
out of that
get
number,
in
only
the candy store.
56,000 were from the US. I thought that was interesting.
Mhm.
3.1 million, mostly from Asia, Southeast Asia, India in particular, and 56,000 of that were from the US. So they're not,
Yeah.
even though our minister, Joly, Melanie Joly, said that the Americans are just knocking down the doors trying to get into Canada for the job opportunities here. You didn't know that, did you?
Well, you sure wouldn't know it from those statistics, that's for sure. But
Well,
anyhow, yeah, take a look, folks. It's well worthwhile. And
absolutely.
as we're kind of ticking down,
Yep.
don't forget, hit the like button,
Please,
buy us a coffee.
please.
We like it.
Yeah, we could use the money. Thank you very much. We're unashamedly telling you we need your support and subscribe because that helps our algorithm for the various platforms that we show up on. Anyway,
Yeah,
cool.
yes, indeed. So once again, we reached the end of our discussions
We could sing
for this week.
Happy Trails to Us until
Yeah.
we meet again. Wait a minute, we'd run into trouble with YouTube because I now it's music to some ears.
Aha. Uh-huh. We're in trouble.
Seriously. All right, bud. You have a good
All
week.
right. You too.
Talk to
Well,
you soon. We'll have
well,
more important news for the people.
whether they listen or not.
That's right.
All right.